Paul Not Court Podcast. Cortez Paulus here. Kevin Carter over Skype. Good afternoon or good evening, Kevin. Whatever time it is over there.
It's the same time here as it is there.
See, I just wanted you to change up that intro that you had from last time.
Oh my goodness, it's the same time here as it's there.
Hey, I made you think of something creative by yelling at me, so there you go.
That one didn't even make no sense. That one was better. That one just made no sense. You were like, whatever time it is there. Well, it's unless I'm freaking moved to friggin' the Panhandle, it's the same time here as it is where you live.
Get them all riled up, man, for no reason. But nonetheless, welcome to the show, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, man, this has been an eventful 10 episodes of The Last Dance, and it really just got into the nitty gritty of it, the two last championship runs. And I know a lot of people were screaming, because of the cutaways and segues and everything they was doing. You really got to see the meat of the documentary, and I appreciate that. What was your overall thoughts before we dive into it, Kevin, of episodes 9 and 10?
9 and 10 were some of the we thought the ones before this were emotional. These ones were even just as emotional as the other two as well. They were the whole series just all together was very well done, but these two focusing on really what they said that this documentary was going to be about, and that's the final year of the Bulls. This one really focused in on that.
Yeah, for sure, and it highlighted the runs that they had left. And the first one that we gonna talk about is the Indiana Pacers, and actually Reggie broke this quote down great. As talented as those teams were, and he felt that the Pacers was the better team and the more talented team. He said championship DNA and championship experience really rose to the forefront in that series, and especially in Game 7 for Chicago. He was just mentioning that how, it's different between really talented teams and then that championship DNA team. Break down Reggie's quote for me, Kevin, about that championship DNA and championship experience.
What Reggie was saying was, we're a better team, but they have Michael Jordan. That's basically what he was saying. Is they have Mike, and they have guys on that team that have been there before. And it's just like when we talk about every other thing with people going to the finals and people winning against new teams that are just now getting in there. It'd be like, let's see, what could we compare it to this year? Say the Bucks make it to the finals, and they go up against the Clippers, who have guys that have been there before and won championships and stuff like that. It'll be like that. It'll be like a team with no experience in that situation against guys that have experience in that situation. It's kind of in that area. But I forgot how talented Indiana was. Just when you went back and you seen everybody they had on the team, you're like, man, the Davis brothers alone.
Yeah.
You're like, oh my goodness. I was like, okay, I forgot how. Because when you're watching it, back then you're like, okay, it's a good team. They're actually taking Mike and them to 7 games. But then when you look at it now, you're like, okay, they had a physical squad that a physical team always gave the Chicago Bulls problems. And they were that team. They were really good.
Yeah, man. I mean, you just mentioned.
But Mike never had to go through anybody. If you ask all these youngins.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. But like Kevin mentioned, even the Davis brothers alone, but you can go from Jalen Rose, Mark Jackson,
Rick
Smith, Theo Workman,
the whole dang team.
Like
they were deep and physical.
Right. They had that prototype team that was just real physical, and then you got Reggie who was just their moneymaker and sniper. And people really forget how good Reggie was, man. Reggie he just got hot any second. And it was crazy at the times that he got hot. And he definitely showed that against this series here, and that team was just fun to watch. I had a neighbor that, I mean, to this day he's still a big Pacers fan, but he's a big Reggie Miller guy, and he was just like, that thing Jordan, man. I'm telling you, he's like nobody's going to beat him, man. And I said, I agree, man. It's hard, man. I said we beat him, but it didn't. We didn't.
It didn't feel when Orlando beat them. It didn't feel like Orlando beat them, but Orlando fans were happy that they beat the Bulls. But everybody else was like, "Well, did you really beat them?" Like it was one of those weird feelings when Orlando beat them when Mike just came back. But then the following year, you were like, "Okay, you didn't beat them. You beat them, but you didn't beat them. Now you had to beat them, and it was more. That's a lot of beat 'ems in one sentence."
Yeah, no, and that's the thing is that the one chance that we had to take advantage of beating, a team that, I mean, are progressing and win the title, because we took down the Bulls. That was your one and only opportunity, because you're not gonna get many of those with Michael Jordan around in the 90s.
Yeah, that was it.
And that was about big of a door that you had open. And but as you see, we name all these players before that has not won the title because of Jordan, and Reggie Miller is one of those guys. And he really did have a talented team. And did you see the sound bit with him and Larry Bird at the end of the series?
Oh yeah. You bitch.
That's how friends greet each other, by the way. It's pretty great.
Go work on your golf game. But speaking of Reggie, though, imagine Reggie in today's game.
Mm-hmm.
He's a perfect example of a guy that would have translated into the game playing today. And he's not an extremely big guy. He was athletic, and he could shoot his eyeballs out. He would fit perfectly with everything that's going on today.
Yeah, I agree. That along with him moving without the ball and listen, a lot of guys, if you watch NBA back in the early 2000s to now, you can see players like Rip Hamilton kind of mold his game after Reggie, and you go Klay Thompson, who moved out the ball pretty well and can still handle the ball and get his own shot. But Reggie was one of the better guys with of having both type of games. He can have the ball in his hands and he can move without the ball. Ray Allen too is one of those guys too. That kind of emulate a lot of Reggie. A lot of moving out the ball. So
if we had peak Ray Allen in the game today.
Right. So we know Reggie is a trash talker, and he ended up trying to trash talk Mike, and they highlight that in the seasons. And he ended up calling him a nickname, and he gave him a nickname called Black Jesus.
He called him Black Jesus. He said I would either call him. He said I wasn't calling Michael. What he said, I wasn't calling Michael Jordan anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I would call him. What was it? Jordan, Black Jesus, or that black cat.
Yeah, that black cat.
That black cat. Yeah, and the black cat is stuck because a lot of Jordan shoes are called black cats.
Right.
Like when they do the all black versions of any of them, it's called black cats.
So then we go into the finals, and they play Utah twice. The first time around, it was mostly Chicago. But the second time around, it highlighted that they got back, and a lot of people was kind of favoring the Jazz during this whole last dance because of the whole, everything that's going on.
Yeah.
Right, everything that was going on within the organization, and it's out there. So everybody thought, because Utah had the best record in the NBA that season, and for sure they thought, Utah was going to get them. Because we talked about the Pacers team that's really talented, but you can just look at the Utah team too. And Michael Jordan has some motivation about buying Russell.
That man was like, if you watch wrestling, Chris Jericho always had a list.
Mm-hmm.
And every time somebody done something, he would write them down on that list. Mike had a list. somewhere, some way, Mike was writing everything down that somebody did to him, or he had a good memory about all the stupid somethings that somebody said to him. He just made a list. And every time somebody says something, he clicked the pen. You just made a list. You start writing them down. And then, but once you do it, the bad part is you're always on the list. Once you make that list once, you're continuously on it, and Mike never forgets. Like an elephant.
Can we talk about, I know we're going to do some cutaways here, but can we talk about how John Stockton is just your average American? He pulled up to the game in the NBA Finals in a minivan with his kids.
Yeah. I told you, man. John Stockton's like my dad. It's like John Stockton is just a regular dude. Like, I don't know if anybody's seen the if you're listening to this, you've had to have seen it. The Dream Team documentary that was on ESPN that we mentioned a couple of episodes ago. Mm-hmm. But there was a part where Stockton got off of the bus and said he was going to walk to where they got to go because they were in traffic. Him and his family got off the bus and started walking. No one bothered him. He went up to people that were wearing Dream Team shirts. And they were like, "Have you got to meet anybody on the team?" And the lady was like, "Yeah, we met Charles Barkley the other day." Mind you, they're talking to John Stockton. And he goes, "Have you met anybody else on the team?" They were like, "We met Charles. He was walking around here the other day." And the little girl goes, "Daddy, you're on the shirt." His little girl. And he goes, "Where?" And he goes, "Right there." The lady goes, "Oh my God, you're John Stockton." like no one recognizes him. He's just a 6'2" white dude that doesn't look like he can play basketball. It doesn't look like he plays basketball, but you're talking about the all-time assist and steals leader in the NBA history.
Mm-hmm. And to add on to what you say there, I remember like someone like Charles Barkley said, "Man, I'd pay anything to do what he's doing right now, not to get bothered."
Everybody was on the thing going, "Look at John walking down the middle of the street." He goes, "If I did that, I'd be getting mugged right now."
I know players are envious of that, but you know,
like pay anything to be able just to go walk down the street. But Charles went out and done it on his own anyway.
Yeah. I just come to the fact, I know we tie back to John Stockton, but you know, this is a guy driving a minivan, but you know, here he is dropping dimes on you and blowing past you to go to the rim, and you know, you'll never guess it when you look at him and like, man, that guy don't play ball, but you're sadly mistaken. This guy is probably one of the best hoopers out there, one of the better point guards ever to play the game. And so we talk about John Stockton and Karl Malone, who is arguably, you can put him arguably as one of the best power forwards to play the game. That pick and roll was just very, and by the way, rest in peace to Jerry Sloan. I could have said that to the end, but since we're talking about the Jazz, you know,
if you're talking about the Jazz, you got to talk about Jerry Sloan.
Right, and rest in peace, and you know, may God be with his family. And I'll let Kevin add a little bit about that, about Mr. Jerry Sloan and what he meant to the game.
Such a good coach and such a. When you think of the Utah Jazz, you think of three people. It's John Stockton, Karl Malone, and Jerry Sloan. Those are the three guys that always come to mind whenever anybody thinks of the Utah Jazz because of how long they were there and how much success, especially Sloan. He was there after they left, and still he never lost. I think that every year he always won 40 or more games, except for the strike season, and he was 30-something and 20-something. Mm-hmm. But that was the only reason he didn't score. He didn't get the 40 wins is because they cut the season short. But this was a guy. He was an extremely good coach and a well-respected member of the NBA community. And we lost a good one when he passed away.
Yes, we did. And just that Jazz team in general. We go Karl Malone.